Hi, my name is Susan Gertz, and I'm a collage artist. I'd like to introduce you to some of my work, like the piece you see in front of you called Small Earth 2. If you're not familiar with collage, it's a form of art where layers of paper are glued together to form an image. Often paint and other materials are used as well. The techniques I use in my work primarily come from a book by Jonathan Talbot called Collage, A New Approach. And you see the book in front of you there, as well as a tacking iron, which is a tool that's important in this method, and golden acrylic medium, which is another ingredient important in this method. You can click on this slide and it will take you right to Jonathan Talbot's website where you can order this book and this tacking iron for yourself. And these items are not expensive and you can have a lot of fun learning how to make collages this way. Note that to make this slide actually link to Jonathan's website, you have to click on the link that appears at the bottom of the slide. If this link disappears before you can click on it, just hover over the right-hand arrow and it will make the link reappear. Here you see the very beginnings of a collage, the way I often make them, and this is using some techniques learned from Jonathan Talbot. I have a piece of heavy watercolor paper here to which I have adhered some torn patterned paper from a sewing pattern. And if you look at some of my finished collages, you will see that you can still find the bits and pieces of some of the arrows and triangles and dotted lines that come from this base of a sewing pattern tissue. Here's a collage that's a little bit further developed than the previous one. Now this one does not have sewing tissue as a base. It has just a pale peachy colored and some white tissue paper as a base with now the beginnings of a layered image. You see some blue tissue, you see a sea animal and some other images layered on top, but this one is not finished yet. You saw the previous collage had images of sea creatures in it, and when you look at some of my other artwork, you'll see that I like to use images of sea creatures and other organisms in my work. My background, my formal education is in zoology, and that is definitely an influence in my work. Here's an image I have used in some of my work, and the next two slides show a couple others. When you see some of my finished works in some later slides, see if you can locate this image. Here's another one to look for. Okay, here's Small Earth 1, and I bet you see something familiar here. In this work, Sea Dance, I have used the same image of microscopic sea organisms, diatoms, which you saw previously, but I've added some other images that to me evoke a sense of the sea, although they are not actually sea organisms. In this work, Escape Velocity, we again have very small sea organisms, but they're enlarged almost to a celestial type of scale. They seem almost to be orbiting. There's an arrow with giving things sort of a motion or a vector type of feeling. A doorway, it seems sort of dreamlike or imaginary. I'm not really sure, but in here we certainly have been taken out of the context of any sort of sea into some other reality. I'm also attracted by any sort of image that represents mark making by humans to indicate thoughts or ideas, words or meanings. This shows the grid from which the Hangul alphabet, the Korean alphabet, is developed. Here is a single element from that grid. I come from a Jewish background and I'm very attracted to the Hebrew alphabet because it's very beautiful, and I'm also attracted to the meaning and history behind specific Hebrew words and phrases. This reads Bereshit, in the beginning, the first word of the Bible, Hamayim, the water, and Echad, one. These are all words from Genesis, and these particular words come from an old type specimen book, a pre-World War II German type specimen. Here is a piece called Hangul Squid, which incorporates an element of the Hangul alphabet grid into a collage. Here's another piece using the Hangul alphabet grid. It's called Cheju Grandfather, and the stone carved form there represents a grandfather. It was made on Cheju Island in Korea, where my husband used to live when he served in the Peace Corps there. Here is a work called In the Beginning, Water Was One, and this piece has a number of layers of meaning. It has the literal meaning of in the beginning, the water was one, as in the Genesis story, the earth was all water at the beginning. And this piece shows water, that the sea, that the earth was at the beginning, but also because of my background as a biologist, if you look at the origins of life from a scientific point of view, life began also from the water, and all life began from single-celled organisms that started in the sea. So this piece has a dual meaning, both the creation story interpretation and the scientific interpretation of the beginning of life. Now that you know a little bit more about me and my artwork, I hope you'll continue to look at my website and look at some of the artwork a little more closely that I showed you on this slideshow, and at some other works that are not on this slideshow. And some of these works are for sale, so if you're interested, I hope you'll consider buying something that you really love. If you have any questions, please get in touch with me. All my contact information is on the website, and you can certainly ask me any questions. And thanks a lot for taking a look.